Hello, and welcome to the English version of the multimedia lectures for Kil Desu. I'm Peter Sunsengnim, and I'll be looking at the grammatical structure of the sentences in this book, as well as giving some example sentences that use these same structures. A quick note before we get started. As I go over the sentences in this book, I'll be using a set of symbols to mark the grammatical function of each part of a sentence, such as subject, verb, and complement. For example, a noun phrase will be marked with corner brackets, with a 1 after them for a subject, and a 4 after them for a direct object. I'll explain the additional symbols as they come up. Now let's begin. First, we're going to examine sentences 1 through 10. These sentences each present one of the 5 most basic sentence types in this book. These basic types form a kind of foundation on which the additional grammatical structures and more complex sentences are constructed. The type 1 sentence consists of a subject, verb, and an optional adverb or adverb phrase. In sentence 1, there is desu. We have the subject, desu, which will mark as our subject using corner brackets and the number 1. Then we have the be verb, is, which will mark as our verb by underlining it. And finally, we have the adverb there, which will mark as a modifier by placing it in brackets. For a type 1 sentence, the adverb is not always required. If the sentence uses an intransitive verb, 자동사, for example, John died, the subject and the verb form a complete thought. However, if the verb is a form of be, an adverbial phrase that tells time or place is needed. The party, there's our subject, was yesterday. John is in the hallway. Next, a type 2 sentence consists of a subject, a linking verb, and an adjective complement. Unlike most verbs which describe an action, linking verbs simply connect the subject with its complement to describe the subject in some way. In sentence 2, desu is kind, will mark the subject, desu, and the verb is in the same way as before, and will mark the subject complement, kind, using parentheses and the Hangul character biup. On the opposite page, you can see a few examples of linking verbs. Look, remain, seem, appear. Here are a couple of examples using linking verbs other than be. John looks scared. The food looks delicious. Notice that in these type 2 sentences, the subject isn't really performing any action. We use this type of sentence simply to describe or give more information about the subject. Now let's look at type 3 sentences. A type 3 sentence consists of a subject, a transitive verb, 타동사, and a direct object, 직접 목적어. In sentence 3, he killed Desu, we'll mark our subject and verb, and then we'll mark Desu as the direct object using corner brackets and the number 4. A couple more examples of this sentence type. Howard kicked the ball. Sarah opened the door. Sentences 4 through 6 are also type 3 sentences, but their objects look a little different from the object in sentence 3. Let's take a look at them one by one. In sentence 4, she knows that he killed Desu. We have our subject, she, knows as our verb, and the object, that he killed Desu, is a noun clause, 명사절. We can more specifically call this one a that clause. Basically, by placing that in front of a clause, we can make it function as a noun. A that clause is commonly used after the verbs know, think, believe, and say. Here are 2 more examples. John thinks that Beth lied about her age. Beth believes that John was a spy. Sentence 5 is just like sentence 4, except for the absence of that from the noun clause. We can call he killed Desu in this sentence a zero that clause, and it still functions as a noun. So we have she as the subject, knows as the verb, and he killed Desu as our object. Now, even though that has been removed, the meaning and the rest of the sentence structure are the same. The biggest clue that can help you identify a zero that clause is its place in the sentence. It will come after the sentence's main verb, usually immediately after it. Note that a zero that clause cannot be a subject. It only works as an object, which is why you should look for it after the main verb. Here are the 2 previous examples without that. Again, the meaning is not changed.